World Problems, Part 1. In this module, you will learn about the global problems of arms race, the policy of racial discrimination, and economic inequality. The world is facing a major threat in the form of arms race. Arms race is a competition among nations to acquire more weapons and develop their military power. In this way, they aim to establish economic superiority. The problem of the arms race began as a result of the Second World War. Since then, much advancement has taken place in war technology and war weapons. The United States of America was the first nation to develop nuclear weapons and the only country to have used them in the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings in 1945. Thereafter, the entire weapon system was classified into conventional weapons and nuclear weapons. After the United States, other countries like the former Soviet Union, Britain, France, China, and India have joined the arms race since 1974. The arms race aggravated between the former Soviet Union and the United States during the Cold War. Over the recent years, some nations have increased their economic resources by producing and selling arms to other nations. This trend has made smaller nations and developing countries feel threatened and apprehensive that the larger neighboring countries may overpower them politically. The arms race threatens international peace and one of the most basic human rights, that is, the right to life. The United Nations strongly oppose the objectives of the arms race. It has taken a number of measures towards disarmament. In 1945, the UN appointed the nuclear mission. Over a period of time, it signed some international disarmament treaties. This includes the Partial Test Ban Treaty of 1963, the Outer Space Agreement of 1966, and the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT, of 1968. From 1969 to 1979, the two superpowers of the Cold War participated in 2 rounds of bilateral talks and corresponding agreements in order to curb the manufacture of strategic nuclear weapons. These negotiations were commonly termed as the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, or SALT. The Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, or ABMT, signed in 1972 was a result of SALT I. SALT II resulted in an agreement in 1979. The SALT treaties led to a bilateral treaty between United States and the Soviet Union called the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or START. The negotiations under START culminated in July 1991 with a comprehensive Strategic Arms Reduction Agreement signed by the US President George Bush and the Soviet Union President Mikhail Gorbachev. The START I treaty was replaced by START II and signed in April 2010 in Prague by the US President Obama and Russian President Medvedev. The START was instrumental in removing about 80% of all strategic nuclear weapons then in existence. Presently, the United States holds the status of having the largest number of nuclear warheads in the world under the Non-Proliferation Treaty. The act of differentiating between people on the basis of their skin color as black and white is known as racial discrimination. The political, social, and economic rights were denied to the black people as they were considered as inferiors and the whites as superiors. This policy was followed by the whites in South Africa. In India, the English officers were also denied certain human rights to the Indians on the basis of racial discrimination. Abraham Lincoln was one of the pioneers to oppose this policy of racial discrimination, while declaring that no one is a slave to anyone and no one is a master to anyone. He fought against the practice of slavery. Another American to fight against the policy of racial discrimination was Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He is known as the Gandhi of America. The practice of racial discrimination in South Africa was known as apartheid. Gandhiji fought against apartheid in South Africa. Dr. Nelson Mandela was also influenced by Gandhi, and he also fought for the rights of the blacks in South Africa. Racial discrimination ended as a result of this campaign. Dr. Nelson Mandela was elected as the President of South Africa in 1993. Based on the economic status, the nations of the world are divided into three groups. Developed nations such as the US, Russia, Japan, etc. Developing nations such as India, Brazil, Egypt, etc. Backward nations such as Ethiopia, Somalia, etc. The nations of Africa, Latin America, and Asia have realized that political stability is not possible without economic independence, and they are striving for economic development. The problem of economic inequality has assumed an alarming proportion in the world. Economic and social problems are closely related to the growth of population, unemployment, poverty, and scarcity of basic facilities. The major causes of economic backwardness was the colonial policy of the rulers. The developed nations started helping the backward nations in the North-South dialogue. North means the nations who are economically powerful, while the South refers to the nations of Africa, Latin America, and Asia, who suffered colonialism. The developed countries impose certain conditions on the developing nations while lending aid. The countries which receive help are required to purchase the readily available goods from the helping country. There should be a transfer of technology from the helping nations to the countries receiving the help. The developing nations should purchase military weapons from the helping countries. The agreements reached in North-South talks were Agreement of World Trade Organization, WTO, Doha Accord, and Bali talks. Let us now recap all the important points that we have covered in this module on the world problems of arms race, racial discrimination, and economic inequality.